the Archbishop of Canterbury, has condemned the UK red list as a travel appetite and urged the government to scrap it. In a tweet post, he said that there must be fair and effective approach for those who are vaccinated and tested to enter the country. His statement comes amid growing outcry from many in the international community calling the UK's decision discriminatory. On Monday, Nigeria became the 11th country to be added to the UK's red list. Meanwhile, 3 additional cases of the Omicron COVID-19 variant have been identified in Nigeria. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, or NCDC, confirms that the new cases were detected in individuals with recent travel history to South Africa. The announcement comes days after the NCDC announced 3 cases of the new variant. The agency says it has been notified by the UK government of 7 cases of travelers from Nigeria who tested positive for the variant. Sundu.
Well, the Archbishop of Canterbury, I suppose, has friends in Nigeria, including President Buhari, and he's in agreement now with several other voices like the Senate, House of Reps, 36 governors. There's this general outcry, rejection of that policy from the United Kingdom, but I don't know if that's really going to convince them in any way. I don't know if they're going to be swayed, as they frankly ought to be swayed, by the condemnation, broad condemnation, because it does continue to be a problem. Since the outcry, one would have imagined that by now that ban would have been lifted, or other countries would have been added to the red list. But no, countries like Netherlands, Denmark, whose Omicron cases are escalating, even the UK's are escalating. None of those countries have been added to the list. It continues to remain African countries, including some African countries like Zambia, that doesn't even have any Omicron cases. So it does look exactly like apartheid. And it's really completely unacceptable in this day and age. And that pressure should continue. That outcry should continue. The United Kingdom's government should be shamed for what they have done. It does not make any sense. What should happen is just a general ban, like you have in Japan. You might say dramatic, but at least it's not discriminatory. Or you can have the policy of America, where you come in, everybody can, and you have to isolate, you have to have your PCR test, or what they've had in the UK that's really onerous. You come in and you have to be in a facility and you pay about $3,000 for that facility. If your trip is that important to you, you will do it. If not, you stay at home. That makes sense. That is uniform, that is science-based, rather than hysterical and frankly just fatuous and completely silly at this point. But the point is also about Africa and how Africa is disrespected constantly, how Africa is seen as the world's charity case and basket case, how we're constantly going cap in hand to ask for everything, loans, aid, even vaccines. And you now have news coming out today that 1 million vaccines were wasted in Nigeria. And that also points down, I'm sure the Western media is going to jump on that, because it points to, oh, look, even what we give them, they waste. But even that, look at what they do give us with the short shelf life of those vaccines. Those vaccines are about to expire in 5 minutes. That's when they know they're going to give it to you. And it reminds me of people when you have all these food drives around Christmas or Thanksgiving in America. When you have food drives and everybody tells you in your neighborhood, or donate to orphanages or to homeless shelters or what have you, and everybody goes through their cupboards and you look for things in your cupboard, tins of baked beans or whatever, that's about to expire. That is what you give to charity. That is how we have been treated. That is exactly how we have been treated. So they're giving us vaccines that have a short shelf life. We do not have enough staff, we don't have enough equipment. In some areas, you can't even access those areas to give people those vaccines. Those are problems. But we have to say, it just boils down to how we have conducted ourselves. Oh, yeah. That really is the bottom line. It's unfortunate. Chickens have come home to roost and we don't like the picture.
Definitely. Dr. Batu?
Okay, what has been established in a sense is also that, look, this whole story about Omicron, the Delta variant, and the fortunes, the future, the character or the mischaracterization of COVID-19 is a developing story. Every 24 hours, we come with a new strands of the story. Now, the Most Reverend Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, was not just supporting Nigeria. He has strong connections with Nigeria. There are Nigerians working with him very closely. But I think he had made the same point about the Southern African countries, even before now. And what he's speaking to is how what has been done by the United Kingdom is morally wrong, and how it is a defeatist approach, and how it is important to follow the science. And so, apart from, the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, we now have the Archbishop of Canterbury using the pulpit to speak the truth to power, to say that the discrimination against African countries, including Nigeria, is unjustifiable, is unacceptable, and that the British government should follow the science. However, I note one point, that, look, the British themselves, they are just as confused as everyone else. The cabinet, going to Christmas, is divided on the issue of whether there should be a plan B or whether there should be restrictions. They are not even sure that Boris Johnson and his team will not hold another Christmas party that they will call a business meeting in which there are no restrictions. That kind of hypocrisy at the highest levels of the British government. So what do you expect? If they did it last year, perhaps 2021 Christmas will look, in both Whitehall and Downing Street as Christmas 2020 looked. So in other words, you find a lot of confusion around. And that is why it is important that at this time we have voices of reason that are applying caution. What else has happened in the last 24 hours with regard to Nigeria? We've been given the information that 3 more cases have been discovered. So bringing officially the cases of Omicron in Nigeria to about 6. But perhaps, if we can be modest, if we can, again, also on our part follow the science, maybe the number is more. Maybe what we're given is the official number. Maybe we're faced with what the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, in the last 24 hours described as a 4th wave, descending on the country, particularly Lagos State. He has given the mandate to the health ministry and other stakeholders in Lagos to ensure 30% immunization. Well, maybe we'll be able to achieve that. But he also notes that as of the middle of November, the reproduction rate in Lagos State was about 0.6%.
0.1.
0.1%. But now it's gone up to about 6%.
Yeah.
6% within a space of less than 1 month. So there will be a 4th wave. And the governor of Lagos State blames this fact on the realization that Lagosians have not followed the protocols. And if we were to believe the evidence of our eyes, we will see, of course, all the event centers, the partying and jollofing has continued unabated. The task force that was originally set up, both in the Federal Capital Territory and Lagos State, has gone to sleep. So the governor himself has certain questions to answer, to respond to in that regard. So we find ourselves in a situation in Nigeria. And Lagos State continues to be the benchmark. At a point, it was the epicenter, and consistently it has been the only state that has responded in a more proactive, more public, more transparent, more accountable manner. I don't know what goes on in some of these interland states where the governors seem to be playing possum, either out of ignorance or out of negligence or out of lack of access to the necessary intelligence with regard to this pandemic that affects the country. Some of the governors around Nigeria seem to be distracted. Some of them appear to be just basically ignorant about every important issue for which they have been elected. So hence we continue to benchmark with Lagos State. So I think the issue also is that Nigeria needs to look at all of this, not just the commendation or the support. What can we do? Last week, the NPHCDA gave the instruction that persons who are taking the 2 doses of the vaccination are now entitled, after a space of 6 months, to booster jabs. And booster jabs have been approved in Nigeria, we're told, for persons who are above 18. Maybe I could have asked that if it were possible, since the Presidential Steering Committee says we have enough doses, to cover the population to a certain percentage, maybe perhaps, the 6 months gap should be reduced to 3 months. Because what the science has told us in the United Kingdom and elsewhere is that people who are fully vaccinated, yes, they may come down with the Omicron variant, which has been established is more transmissible than the Delta variant. But if you are already fully vaccinated, you may not, end up being hospitalized. You experience mild to moderate symptoms. And if you get the booster jabs, perhaps that also helps you. So I think the Nigerian authorities, not just Lagos State, nationwide, should look at how they can ramp up, they can, give more velocity, if I may use that phrase, to this booster jab campaign and this mass vaccination campaign that the Presidential Steering Committee launched originally before the Omicron scare overtook the rest of the world. So this is where I think we are. Every voice of reason should speak up. People should follow the science. And then, of course, the mischaracterization, the discrimination, the labeling of certain parts of the country, of the world, I think, defeats the purpose of global solidarity, global cooperation, that every important institution, from the WTO to the WHO to the G7 to the G20, had pushed as a way forward in this fight against a corrosive pandemic.
All right, so two things. Number one, we can all agree on the high-handedness of Britain, the neo-imperialism, the neo-colonialism, this absolute thinking that Africa is of reproach. That's their thinking. We can all agree on that. And I'm happy that Most Reverend Justin Welby has come out to call it, and he has called a spade a spade. But what can we do internally? The governor came out to say yesterday that we've got a fourth wave. Incidence number has increased in the state. There's a new drive for vaccination, count me in. At first, do we have the technical data of all those that have been vaccinated in Lagos? And also, let's write a roadmap, match it up with a plan. Those that are eligible to get vaccination, what is the population of people eligible to get vaccination? So if we have a technical data and we say about 1.3 or 1.4 million, I don't know the exact number, is vaccinated, then how far are we going? Then how can we have a statewide campaign to incentivize people to take this? How can we work with corporate institutions? Because you see, most people I know are picking up COVID from the workplace. There's a massive outbreak in companies in Lagos.
I'm the worst person to say that to.
You get, most of them are picking up COVID in the workplace. And because of this, can you also drive the vaccination through the workplace and offices? Can you also talk to these offices and drive the vaccination through them and members of staff and HR and start the persuasion from there? Can we start by HR sending out messages every day that we are not all protected except you're protected, can you get a jab? Can the Lagos state government effect that with various HR in the states? Secondly, can we take it to the people on the street? Can we take it to the marketplaces? Make it exciting for them. If possible, put all the stops, jollof rice,
I knew that was coming.
What's it called? Pepper soup, amala, everything. Make it exciting.
Whatever it takes.
If possible, pay them to take it. Because when these politicians want their vote, you bribe people, don't you? You pay them. So why can't you pay them to take this vaccine if possible? Now, if money is going to incentivize them, because the grand scheme is going to be protection of the people. The third phase, can you also make it available? I hear it's available in some private health institutions. Some people will go there, they will pay a certain amount. Can we reduce that amount? Can we incentivize people to take it? Because it's just one thing to say, oh yes, the numbers have shot up, people are going around in life, and they're going about their duties, they're not taking precaution. The truth has to be said. What is the vaccination drive? Because we know, and we've been able to prove according to the science, that it is vaccination that can stem the tide of this. And good data coming out of South Africa, albeit very primitive data and shallow data, but the signs are good. In a hospital in Gauteng, that has been the epicenter of this, the treatment of people that die with Omicron variant, it says 2 out of 9 in a particular ward is on oxygen. Just 2 out of 9. And those 2 because they're not vaccinated.
Yes, it's unrelated to
and
it's unrelated to the virus.
Yeah.
They have other
issues.
Yeah.
So that's to show you that it's not as virulent. And also other stats that are coming out, I would repeat again, very early data coming out to show the fact that it is not as, hard on the people as the Delta variant was. In fact, in hospitals around the Gauteng province and some other provinces in South Africa, they are saying the high hospitalization, the need for oxygen rate was about 23%, but the Omicron variant, that's for Delta, but the Omicron variant is less than 10%. So that's some good signs. So that shows you that, yeah, things, and we talked to a South African doctor the other day that says when a virus starts to mutate and gets its end, then it starts to get less virulent. So that's some good signs coming up. But how can we fight that good sign coming out? By launching an all-out vaccination. The governor has launched a project. He says, let's count everybody in, count me in. From the 10th of December, it is possible to go take your third jab. That's what the ZCDA, the National Primary Health Organization, is saying. From the 10th, you can go take your third jab. Let's all come together and have concerted effort at fighting this. And let's put the data in front of people. Let's put the stats in front of people. Take, for instance, I want to see on billboards in Lagos, 22 million population, 10 million people eligible or 15 million people eligible. I don't know the data. Only 10 million people have taken this. We want more people to take the jab. You can do it. We can all keep Lagos safe. I want to see it on all the billboards in Lagos so that seeps into the subconscious of people so we know that we are all fighting this and we are going to win COVID.
Well, Lagos State did.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Okay, the Lagos State government says it has launched a Count Me In campaign. And it has also launched 30 private, partnership sites that people can access. Well, the people will need to be informed. I would also like to see the situation in Lagos State whereby that task force that used to go around to, manage event centers on weekends and all the Milikin and Jolofin centers around Lagos was proactive for a while, and then it disappeared. I would also like to see a situation whereby the Lagos State government will return to that promise that it made, that it was going to, independently of the Nigerian government, also perhaps independently of the GOVT facility, seek, its own supply of, vaccine doses. That has not happened. We have not received enough explanation in that regard. However, Lagos, yes, very strategic, commercial capital of Nigeria, is not the only state in Nigeria. Before now, the NPA-CDA came up with that, infograph in which they said, 5 states were the leading states in terms of mass vaccination. But if you looked at the percentages, it means nothing. Now, we would like to see more in terms of efforts from the more populated states of Nigeria, what their governors are doing. And that was why I said, look, many of these governors, they're just playing possum. We will probably report Lagos and every statement from Lagos because the media is located very close to the Lagos state government. What are they doing, for example, in Kano State? What is anybody doing in other states of Nigeria? Whereas we seem to see some activities in Lagos, whereas NPA-CDA in one account tells us that some states, like Ogun State, like Ekiti State, are doing a lot. The truth of the matter is that, our leaders, as in everything else, they seem to have just, moved on and they just, feed us with rhetorics about commitment. We would like to see more concrete commitment in terms of what is done, in terms of results, not just these routine briefings that we receive. The reality of it is that, yes, COVID-19 remains a problem. The second reality is that the Omicron variant is indeed in Nigeria. And perhaps one day, if we get to know the extent of it, we may all perhaps moderate our nationalism with regard to responses to how other countries have responded to us.
I just wanted to also add, and we'll talk about Lagos, but you've already talked about that, but I wanted to say, I don't see this as neo-imperialism or neo-colonialism because those two concepts involve having other nations as your fiefdom, having them sit at your feet. This is a different beast entirely. They want to treat Africa as a pariah. They want to socially distance, if you will, get back and just be completely isolated. And because we've been talking about bullying, because of the appalling tragedy of Sylvester, bullying, a part of bullying is not just violence or teasing. It's about excluding people, everybody else but not you. We are being bullied by the United Kingdom. That is what this is.
And we have been wrongly profiled
as
vectors.
Yes, disease-carrying vectors. The African disease.
And that's why. So was it safe for my hardline stance yesterday about UK Omicron? That's all a news headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll talk to Michael, Aaron, and we'll give updates on global business and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Michael Wilson, I guess we can now hear you directly here in the studio in Lagos. Please go ahead.
How am I coming through? Okay.
Yes, we're good.
Good. All right, good. Let's go then. I'll do it really quickly because obviously we've taken up a bit of time getting these technical issues correct. So volatility basically all across the Asian markets. China, I was noticing this morning, and we did it yesterday, that they're going to reduce the amount that banks need to carry to cover to cover their lending and so on. That'll help certainly. It may be also that China reduces its lending rate, but the troubled real estate part of the Chinese sector, equity sector. Are in focus again. I'll come on to those just 1 second. Chinese social media company Weibo had a disappointing market debut in Hong Kong. It had been on the but it made its debut this morning, not very good really, and alongside Didi saying that it would actually be delisting from the New York Stock Exchange, so it doesn't look too good for that. But mainland stocks rose after a subdued session this morning. So Chinese real estate woes continue. Kaiser, we've talked about that. Will be suspended now following the Evergrande crisis. Kaiser's been embroiled in debt issues. It's unlikely that it'll be repaying its $400 million that it actually owes. This is the second trading halt. Evergrande, we talked about it briefly yesterday. Is it set for restructuring? Well, no word on the formal default, but yes, it most certainly is, as far as we can tell. It's set to forge ahead with it. It's got local administrators on the committee. It's swamped by $300 billion worth of liabilities. And it's actually being helped very, very slightly by that marginal optimism in Chinese stocks, but really is a long way to go before it recovers. A managed kind of destruction is probably what's on the cards for Evergrande as we speak. As far as the US is concerned, stocks jumped for a second day. Investors grew less fearful of the potential economic effects of the Omicron coronavirus variant. The Dow Jones up 460. And tech stocks were in relief rally mode, basically. So that's really what happened. The House takes a key step forward, raising the debt ceiling as the deadline draws closer. It's passed a bill that would allow it to go into the Senate once legislation gets through. Then it may be that the Congress can hold separate votes to increase the lending limit, and expected to hit debt ceiling around about December the 15th. More and more economists are also thinking in the United States, just as a side view, that the taper of Fed buying will be finished by the end of March. In other words, no more the end of March. Friday sees the CPI figures coming out of the United States, and that will certainly raise the heat at the next FOMC meeting next week. The US is to demand a halt to the Nord Stream 2 if Russia were to invade Ukraine. Pressure on Germany to block Russia's gas pipeline, part of a package of sanctions. This came during a teleconference between Putin and Biden yesterday. Nord Stream is built but not pumping. There are other measures in place too, other sanctions, for example, that would stop Russian oligarchs being able to transfer rubles into dollars and that would affect their income. Amazon's down. Amazon's been down. Thousands of users in the United States, including Prime Video and Alexa, they've been hit by computer problems. Thousands of users in the United States, including Amazon Web Services, the cloud computing arm, has also been affected as well. That's rather important because it gives accessibility to governments use it, and universities too. Amazon said it's had some signs of recovery, but we'll see when it gets into into proper progress today. Now, we should turn our attention to Germany, I think, because the new government's being sworn in today, and there are a number of challenges. We talked about this yesterday as far as Germany is concerned, and the new president there overcoming coronavirus, also getting to grips with the economy, meeting climate goals, and also, I think, most important actually, foreign policy challenges facing Germany as far as Russia and China is concerned. And Annalena Baerbock, who's the new foreign minister, she's a Green, and also investments and debt. Now, Scholz promised the biggest industrialization in Germany for 100 years. The debt brake is still suspended. We may see more progress there. The US, as far as the UK is concerned, the US has overtaken the EU as a destination for its financial service exports, now down about 6% as far as the EU is concerned. Now 30% of our financial services exports go to the United States. UK network operators in the power sector, particularly electricity, are under a lot of scrutiny today. This is a disgraceful episode. There was a big storm. There were various outages. Now the business secretary is saying that these were quite, it was about 1 million homes were out of power, some of whom are still not with power. I mean, no power whatsoever. And they're still waiting to connect 500 homes. 1 million homes, though, were out for more than 10 days. The COVID PCR testing market's been labelled a rip-off jungle. Quite agree with that. I've experienced it myself. A lot of companies actually making a huge amount of money from compulsory COVID testing, and yet you go to one, they charge this, you go to the other, they charge that, and even the government websites not giving proper information. Again, something which needs to be looked at. Two commodities for you. Oil surges on these lower Omicron concerns. Really, what's in store for 2022? The energy markets are not telling us a great deal, but they are relatively bullish for 2022, and gold is creeping slightly higher appear to be tempting a few gold bulls back into the market. No big themes emerging there. It's just that people are turning to it again because they can. That's the slightly later than usual global view. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Michael. Let's go to Germany. The problem I see with Germany is this: as they swear in their ministers today and the government of Olaf Scholz comes in, is the fact that there's going to be that disparity. And I'm going to talk about Christian Lindner, who is going to be the finance minister. Christian Lindner doesn't want them to increase the debt ceiling, but Olaf Scholz wants investment and development in the country. So they are at apathy. Secondly, Christian Lindner doesn't want them to increase taxes, but how can you make all that investment if you don't increase taxes? You know, so the problem of debt, the problem of taxes will be there. And at the same time, Christian Lindner was calling for stability in the Eurozone today. You wonder what kind of stability. And that's one. But secondly, for me, will be the long question about what is happening to the UK energy economy. Now you can see the power cuts based on the storm that happened. Now they've not been able to give power back to about 1 million homes after the storm. What is really happening? And the prices will go up next year because there are no buffers.
Let's talk about the UK electricity network at the moment. Yes, still 100 homes, as far as we can tell, out of 1 million affected by this storm. We can't plan for everything, and unfortunately, though, the power suppliers are going to be hauled over the coals by the business secretary to ask how this could improve. It's disgraceful that so many homes were. I mean, they couldn't even. There was nothing to tap into. It's not like sort of going illegally into some kind of supply, which people often do. There was just nothing at all. It's absolutely disgraceful. And added to that, the energy sector is not fit for business. We've already had the head of the electricity businesses saying that already because of price caps, which are not allowing companies to make money. So it's a horrible mess, and it really needs sorting out. And that's why politicians get paid. And I'm hoping the business secretary will be applying a lot of his energies to this in the very near future, because at the bottom line, what it does is affects votes. I mean, that's the worst thing. People are looking at and saying to these energy companies, the energy companies are saying, but it's not our fault. We can't get the investment because we can't charge enough. Well, go figure, as far as I'm concerned. And I think there's going to be a lot of debate about that. As far as Germany is concerned, this is a completely unprecedented experiment. Look at the parties involved, the Social Democrats, the Greens and the FDP, none of whom actually agree on debt. They don't agree on spending. There's going to be a huge concern about that. And I ran through some of the issues that Olaf Scholz actually faces, and they're quite enormous. He is promising the biggest industrial repair and overview and start again for 100 years. Nobody has ever done that, even though Germany achieved an economic miracle after the Second World War. There's no question about that. And still, believe it or not, there are still companies in Germany using faxes to they haven't even got into the tech world of high-speed internet and so on. So there is an enormous amount to do. And you're absolutely right. So there's going to be a lot of internal discussion about money. Yes, debt. Yes, certainly. Stability. That stability, but where's that gone now? That debt break, as I said earlier, is off, but not forever. And also, what's their relationship with Russia and China going to be? And also, and not least of which, the rising inflation. There are lots of problems for Herr Scholz and his divided coalition, I would suggest.
Yes, quickly, Michael, two things. Let me start with Germany. Today, a new government steps into power in Germany. The formality in parliament is just what it is, a formality. So you have the Greens, you have the Social Democrats, and you have the FDP stepping in a traffic coalition arrangement for the next 4 years. But I would like to have your comments on Angela Merkel, the outgoing German Chancellor, who won election 4 times. If she wanted a 5th term in office, she probably would have been given it by an appreciative, country. And even Olaf Scholz, who's coming in, probably piggybacked on her success. What kind of woman was she? Taking charge of Europe's largest economy for 16 years. I think this is an appropriate moment to pay tribute to the legacy of Angela Merkel. That's one. The second one has to do with the 2-hour virtual phone interaction between President Biden yesterday with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the question of Ukraine. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea, and there's been problem in the Crimean Peninsula since then. And now the U.S. is promising very strong economic sanctions and additional sanctions. And immediately after that 2-hour interaction, in which Putin was complaining about the NATO allies invading his frontiers and trying to set up a military presence there, President Biden spoke with the NATO allies, spoke with Italy Prime Minister Boris Johnson, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, as she then was, and it looks like by February, January, we could have a showdown around that peninsula. Do you think that will happen, or Russia will back off?
Well, let's do Russia and Ukraine. I have no idea, nor has anybody else, what's in Putin's mind at the moment. We have to make guesses. Here's what the guesses are, generally speaking, that Russia is very weak and it enjoys that actual talk with Biden is what the Russians and what Putin actually want. It doesn't really matter what's said, provided those two are seen to be talking to each other. That guarantees him a place on the world stage. And since he's no longer in G8, and since Russia went out of G8 now, and that's back to G7, it is searching for a role. It is very dependent on its energy exports. There's very little else that people actually want to buy from Russia. And remember, absolutely what's going on with Russia is they fear China a great deal. Remember that their eastern border is barely populated, and China is continuing to ask for population to be actually started there, actually onto Russian territory. That's what they're really worried about. Most of the population of Russia is in the west of the country. So they fear that. They fear China a great deal. What Biden is saying, and again, both of these politicians are playing playing on the domestic vote. Biden is saying that the pipeline will put pressure on Germany and on Schultz, as he will be, to say, you know, do not allow it to go ahead. As I said, it is built; it's just not pumping at the moment. But to see how weak this actually is the noise that Russia is making about it at the moment, and Biden can easily put the clamps on Russian oligarchs trying to transfer rubles into dollars. He said that's one of the sanctions that he's going to do. So I think that all the cards really are down to the United States if it chooses to use them. I hope that it doesn't. I hope that what happens is more talk will actually go. So I'm pleased that the two sat down, but the balance of power is very much towards the United States. As far as Angela Merkel is concerned, yeah, I mean, what she was in power a long time. They called her the Mutter because the Germans actually quite like a strong family figure overlooking them, and they're not easily led to change, and that's why she was able to continue, I think, for so long. I didn't particularly much fancy her close relationship with Putin in Russia, but then again, that was up to her. I feel as though she didn't get a lot of criticism from that domestically. I certainly criticised it at the time, but who am I? I'm just a commentator. As far as Germany itself is concerned, what she didn't do was latch on quickly enough to modern technology, and that's why I was saying earlier on that Germany is still mired in this kind of pre-digital age, which is fine. The small manufacturing companies are absolutely okay, no problem with that. But the question is, does anybody want to buy what they're doing? And also, what about inflation as well? Not just, I would suggest, caused by Omicron and by the virus and so on, but by shifting events in the world that Germany has not really got hold of. So I think we celebrate the fact that she was in power for so long. What did she actually manage to do? Well, she was building on a very firm base. Remember, she was building on a very firm Bundesbank and a very firm Deutsche Mark, which it was at the time.
Well, thank you very much, Michael.